Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you could tell by the title and the thumbnail, I wanted to discuss specifically how to build Tearlaments with Master Duel in mind, and kind of go over what we have seen in the TCG and in the OCG, and more so just how to build it for Master Duel. Now, notably, I do not have nearly as much experience with this deck as I do Splight, and the reason for that is because I didn't really pay attention to it prior to the Ishizu stuff coming out, and I'm not really going to be covering the Ishizu stuff because it just so drastically changes the way that tier works, and I don't expect it to arrive anytime soon, but there's also so much more coverage for that you can look at and understand from both an OCG and a TCG perspective that it's not really going to be advantageous, even as a Master Duel player, for me to go over that. Whereas something like prior to the release of the Ishizu stuff, going over that stuff in both the TCG and an OCG perspective should give us some insight as to what we should be doing, etc., etc. So that's kind of the thought process there. However, I'll be going over both this version, which I believe to be more of like a TCG centric idea. This is what TCG players, I wouldn't say like tended to play, but this is like some of the ideas that they came up with. So we have this kind of version of the deck, and then we have like more of an OCG style of the deck, and we're gonna be going over both of those, and more specifically how like which one will be better. And then at the end I'll explain like the additional cards that are worth thinking about. I can't really do that in specific deck builds because there are just so many different variations of this deck that I just want to like go over additional cards that we could play or that we might see in the future. So let's start off with the tiers. We're starting off with Rhinoheart. This card is absolutely crazy. Jump a card, get your combo started, and is a necessary name for their big fusion boss monster, Kaleidoheart. Kaleidoheart specifically requires a tier and 2 aqua monsters, which keep that in mind. Now, notably, Kaleidoheart is the boss monster prior to Lulukaros coming out in the TCG/OCG/Master Duel. I don't know if we will get all of the fusions and all of that stuff together. I am basing this off of how it was released in both OCG and TCG, allowing us access to just this, right? And kit, obviously. But with that being said, we still have access to other fusion monsters, so do keep that in mind. Next up, we have ourselves Merly. Merly is the card that you want to be special summoning off of your kit because of the fact that it mills an additional 3, which allows you to go kit, mill 5, and then Merly mill 3, milling a total of 8, which is very nice to trigger all of your names and just go off to the races. It doesn't really have anything other than that. It's just the monster you want to summon and hopefully get lucky with. Then we have Havness. This is the reason that this deck is absolutely insane. Being able to play on your opponent's turn by starting your combos. Whenever your opponent activates an effect, you special summon this guy, you'd mill 3 cards, and now you're off to the races, hopefully. Absolutely insane. Next up we have Sheeran. Dump a card out of your hand in order to special summon her, and then you are able to well, now you just have a level 4 on your side of the field, but more importantly, you could potentially pitch something like, I don't know, a Havness, a Merly, a Rhinoheart, and then you get your combos started. Very cool. We're also playing SnowiKs. I've seen players play this at 1. I've seen it played at 3. I've seen it played with Meta Noise. I'm not entirely sure I like Meta Noise, but it exists, so we might talk about it. This card is probably going to arrive prior to a lot of the other tier cards, most notably things like Crime, Scream, and Heartbeat. So because of that, we're playing multiple of it. It's absolutely insane, though. This is an just absolutely broken card. It's a continuous trap that if you control a tier monster, you can target an effect monster, negate its effects permanently, and then send a monster you control to the graveyard. So basically, you go, I have a tier monster, flip this up, send it to the graveyard, and now I get a fusion summon. Or you could bring it back with something like Kaleidoheart, because it just comes back. Yeah, that's really cool. And then also if it's sent to the graveyard, you add a tier to your hand. So the idea is you mill this, and then you get to add something like a Merly or a Rhinoheart or something like that to get your combo started. So really cool there. Again, I've seen it at 1, I've seen it at 3. Very solid card. We're going to real quickly talk about meta noise. If you control a tier monster, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, flip it face down, and then send a tier from deck to grave. And if it's sent to the graveyard, target a tier monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use one effect per turn. This is the main reason I think why this one isn't as played. Adding a tier card from your graveyard to your hand is also meh. Like, who cares? But the fact that you can only use one effect per turn means that you can't, like, hit it, like send it to the graveyard after using its mediocre on-field effect to also gain a monster back if like it gets stopped in some way. So it's just like, I don't know, it's not great. Both of its effects are like decent but not crazy, so it's just better to run multiple SnowiKs. But you can totally play it if you feel like you need to. Next up, we have the Dangers. Now, Dangers really caught on in both OCG and TCG, but it was really one of the first reasons why Tier did so much better in the TCG, and it was because of this version of the deck. Basically just saying, I am going to hit tiers, and I am going to win because I'm going to be able to fusion summon and just combo off. And the way to do that is with tiers, which is why I'm very confused as to why Jackalope and Tsuchinoko came off of the list prior to tier coming out. But also that might be why they came off of the list prior to tier coming out. So yeah, just maxing out on Nessie. It's an Aqua. Hey, that's really nice. That means you can go into Kaleido Heart using the Nessie. Very cool. On top of that, we have things like Jackalope, we have Tsuchinoko, we have Bigfoot. Chupacabra happens to be very good in this list, or just in this version of the build, due to the fact that if it gets milled, you are able to then... if it gets discarded, you're able to special summon something that you potentially milled off of like a tier effect. So that's very nice. Snow and Destrudo also exist in this format at totally just unlimited copies, which is crazy to me. That's just hilariously stupid. But alas, here we are. So yeah, of course abuse the Snow. Snow is crazy. Snow is absolutely broken. Please put this card into your deck until it gets banned. Anyway, next up we have, of course, Super Polymerization and Instant Fusion. Now this is pretty standard, besides like this guy. This would be pretty standard in terms of a list. The fact, okay, in the TCG, Danger, Jackalope, and Tsuchinoko are at 1. So they were playing things like Mothman and Chupacabra and stuff like that. Now granted, Chupacabra and Mothman are very good for going into rank 4s because they are level 4, allowing you access to things like Abyss Dweller, which is very good against tier, and Redoer, which you can put another tier name under in order to trigger it on the opponent's turn to get like a guaranteed fusion summon, basically. So we could play more level 4s in terms of the Dangers if we really wanted to, if we wanted to go for more rank 4s. So there's that. We also have access to this really weird, funny thing that you can do with Branded in High Spirits and Albion. So I want to talk about this. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even mention this card. Sorry, we're going to talk about Perlino here first. Perlino, on activation, searches a tier monster. Also, fusion monsters and tier monsters gain 500 attack. And if a tier monster you control or in your graveyard is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, except they're in damage step, you can target a card in the field and destroy it. Meaning, anytime you would trigger one of your tier effects in order to fusion summon, you can just pop a card on the field. You could also pop your own kit. Why is this the case? I don't know, but you can. Cool. Yeah, you just target any card in the field, pop it. And then that triggers like the tier names as well because they're sent to the graveyard by card effect. And then on top of that, you could, use it as removal, which means if you hit something like a Havness while this card is on the field on the opponent's turn and you happen to mill in order to go and like fusion summon, all of a sudden, now this is a removal spell, which is why Time Thief Redoer is also very good because that free fusion summon is also just like a removal spell sometimes. So there's that. Anyway, moving on. Branded in High Spirits is very funny. Reveal a monster in your hand and send a level 8 fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard with the same type that has 2500 attack or defense. Then you can apply this effect. Discard the revealed monster, and if you do, add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions it from your deck to your hand. If a fusion, or during the end phase, if a fusion monster is sent to your graveyard this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. So, what does this do? First of all, we need to have a target for this. Our target is D3 Frog. D3S Frog. Yes, that is true, but it is the only card that has 2500 attack that is also in Aqua, which means that we can dump something like a tier name. Why do we want to dump a tier name? Well, when you discard the revealed name and add a Fallen Revolvaz or a monster that mentions it, it allows you to trigger the effect. Meaning, you activate this, you reveal a monster, you discard your tier name, and then you add this guy, which then just kind of cycles himself in order to draw a card, which is very cool. That's basically it. And then on top of that, if a tier monster or any fusion monster ends up in the graveyard at any point, you just add it back to your hand. It's a nice recursion loop, and it's very nice due to the fact that with the dangers, you want more discard fodder in your hand, so that you can like get the dangers onto your field. So there's that. Very funny. This is more of like a tech. You could definitely play like more hand traps. As you can see, I'm playing like no hand traps, but this is like all gas all the time. So that's the idea. Of course, we're playing Terraforming because of Perlino, because it's absolutely crazy. Triple Maxi, triple Dark Ruler. I don't know. This could be anything. This is a flex spot. And then the double called by. Yes, we're playing 46. Who cares? We're milling like half of our deck anyway. Just play more. Other notable cards. Mothman. You could just throw that in here. We also have Gizmek Orochi. This is very nice because it allows us access to just like another dark monster. Yes, it does banish, but it's just another dark monster that we can get onto our field that is a different type and attribute, or a different type than while being the same attribute, which is very good for Curious, which we'll talk about in a second. So yeah, Gizmek Orochi also in there. You could also play Eradicator Epidemic Virus, because guess what? If you send this card to the graveyard for this guy's effect, for this guy, you could just shuffle it back and then make it again. So there's that. You could also tribute off something like a Dragostapelia, or you can't do Kit, but like you could tribute off either of these two, which is very nice and cool, and then you're off to the races. You could also tribute off something like a Bigfoot if you're playing that. But yeah, just a very solid card, being able to just wipe your opponent's hand and stuff like that. Cool. Of course, you can play hand traps, things like Ash Blossom, Imperm, Nibiru. We'll talk more about like hand trap lineup in the future. As for the extra deck, 2-Kit Kalos is pretty standard at this point because we don't have as much access to better targets. So we just kind of need a target to go into. And since we also don't have access to Garura, or I'm not expecting access to Garura, Kit Kalos is much better here at more copies. But again, you could just shuffle it back, so it's not that difficult. This is the main combo starter, or combo through line. It mills cards when it's sent to the graveyard. On special summon, it adds a tier card, just any tier card. Luckily, that does not include the Primeval Planet Perlino. That is not the case. You cannot add this, which is great. But you could add Zolyak, so who cares? Yeah, and then, yeah, if it's sent to the graveyard, you mill the top 5 cards, which is great. And then we have Kaleido Heart, which cannot be used as fusion material, hilariously. But you still can shuffle it back. I think. I lied. I honestly don't know if you could do that, but maybe you can. Anyway, if this card is special summoned, or if an Aqua monster is sent from your graveyard, sent to your graveyard by card effect while this card is on the field, you can target a card in your opponent controls, shuffle it away. This is the main reason why hitting something like a Hovness is dangerous, because if they just happen to mill the right cards, all of a sudden they go into this guy and shuffle away your card on your turn, and you can't do anything about it. Also, if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you could special summon this card, and if you do, send a tier from deck to grave. Just fusion summon. Just free fusions. Just here you go. Here's a fusion summon. Now, why are we only playing the one of this? Honestly, because it's got a revival effect mostly. But yeah, we don't really need to go into anything else because, as you can see, we have a lot of other options. We have, of course, Mud Dragon, because 2 monsters, same attribute, different types. Hey, guess what? This guy's a warrior. Why? I don't know. The rest are Aquas. So there you go. Just a free summon a Mud Dragon. There you go. We also have Dragostapelia because fusion, add a dark, very easy. Free negate. There you go. We've talked about that guy. We have Abyss Dweller to shut down the tier names, mostly. And also Snow, because no one likes that card. Then we have Redoer to trigger the effects on the opponent's turn because it detaches for card effect and not for cost, whereas like a lot of the other Other Xyz detach for cost. So being able to detach this guy as material means that you are able to trigger the tier names. So that's very nice. Then we have, of course, Zeus. And then we have, we have other options as well, which again, I'll talk about those in a second. So, Curious. Curious is absolutely crazy. This is why we play the Dangers. It's actually because of this card. Not because of the Dangers actually being good, or Nessie being like an Aqua or anything like. No. That's a lie. It's Curious. Curious is absolutely crazy. If this face of card is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can target a card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Does that matter? Not in the slightest. What actually happens is you can only use this effect once per turn. If this card is link summoned, send a card from your deck to the graveyard. Any card. Just send in. Just send a card. That's it. Just send a card. Also, if a card is sent from your deck to the graveyard by card effect, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Guess what? You can use both of those right after each other. So you mill a card, you send a specific card, and then you mill 3. You just send the top 3, and now you're off to the races. Awesome. On top of that, since it's a link 3, it allows you access to things like Zeraboros, Nightmare Griffin, Apollosa, really easily. Stupid card. Glad it's banned in the TCG, not in the OCG, because the OCG hates everything. I don't know. The OCG is dumb sometimes. But there you go. Then, of course, we have ourselves Dark. It's just insane. I don't know what to say. Being able to steal your opponent's monster from the graveyard and then just, like, have it is very nice. Oh, that's a nice Kaleido Heart you have in your graveyard. It'd be a shame if I were to yoink mine now. So, very cool. Next up, we have ourselves a Spiked Elf. Guess what? Merly's a 2. Why is that the case? I don't know. Then we have Griffin, we have ourselves the Apollosa, and of course we have Zeraboros. Zeraboros is also very funny due to the fact that you are able to, on the opponent's turn, activate something like a Havnus, or just anything basically. With this card on your field, you summon Snow. I think most of the time you just go into Snow, right? You go Snow. You summon it to an arrow this guy points to, and then you just wipe the field as if nothing happened. This is also incredibly consistent due to the fact that getting 4 materials onto your side of the field is cakewalk. So there's that. Let's talk about Griffin real quick. This card is also absolutely crazy. You discard a card, target a spell trap in your graveyard, set it to your field, but it can't be activated this turn. Then, if this card was co-linked, you also get to draw a card. The co-link part doesn't really matter. The main part is the fact that you are able to set something like, I don't know, a super polymerization. You could also set Soliak, but like a super poly? Instant fusion? Apparently no. You can basically just reset anything as well. And since you're milling a whole bunch of stuff, there's going to be something in the graveyard. Hip hip hooray. A lot of people would also play this alongside things like anti-spell fragrance or what have you, due to the fact that it just like shuts down a whole bunch of different strategies. You basically just like kill your opponent. Just like prevent them from playing because of Nightmare Griffin bringing back something. So that's very cool. A lot of like side deck cards would be just gotten off of this guy. Because you can also go Curious, send it, and then set it with Griffin. But also, special summon monsters on the field cannot activate their effects unless they are linked. Oh no! So, this is incredibly difficult to play around due to the fact that most players are going to be special summoning stuff, and they're gonna have like one zone, that being Griffin, in order to like or like Apollosa or something like that. Or you could be really tricky and give them Zeraboros arrows, which is very funny. But like they're just not gonna be able to activate anything unless they go into their own link monster. So there's that. Yeah, just like it's a mediocre Griffin effect, or like a Floodgate effect. But the other effect on top of it is very nice. As for other extra deck options, we have Gigantic Sprite. I am not kidding. This is a card that you can play along with things like Jet and Smashers. We'll talk about that more later down the line when I talk about tech stuff. But yeah, guess what? You play a lot of Link 2s, and you could just like slap this guy down and then summon Merly. Why can you do that? I don't know, but you can. While that does lock you into 2s, you could still just summon them early and then link off into Splight Elf, and then use the Elf on the opponent's turn to summon back them early to mill 3, and then get you off to the races. I don't know what else to say. This is cool. It's not great, but it's cool. Then we have, of course, Nightmare Unicorn, if you want to go like IP Masquerena or anything like that, or just like to clean up boards. As you can see, we're also not playing Access Code, because why? You really don't need to. You have tons of access to high attack point monsters and tons of removal. You just don't need to. And then you can play more copies of Splight Elf. Let's talk about the OCG variant as well. So, Branded makes an appearance once again, but in a different way. As you can see, this is more of an actual branded list, but also we're playing Shaddoll stuff, because guess what? Shaddoll Winda is a card that exists for some reason, and guess what? None of the tier names specifically require you to summon any of tier monsters. You can just fusion summon. I don't know why that's the case, but you just can use any fusion monster. Just go into it. Just do it. I don't know. Who cares? So, because of that, we have great access to Winda. Basically, if you mill a Shaddoll Beast or a Squamata, you are able to go into your Winda, and since Beast draws you a card, it's also just like advantage, so there's that. Pretty standard package here. I threw in the Meta Noise this time instead of the second Soliac, but then we have the Perlinos, and the Shaddoll Beast, Shaddoll Squamata. We have one Fallen of Albaz, as well as the triple branded fusion, because guess what? Branded monsters are pretty good. Also, you could just shuffle this guy back. Just put him back. I guess it's not shuffle. You can put this guy back into the deck to be used for later consumption with your branded fusion. So, pretty cool. Granted, you can't put him back if you go like Albion, but like Albion could just fusion summon into like, I don't know. Does it say specifically level? Oh, level 8 or low. You could go into like Kit Kalos by banishing your monsters if you need to, but that's not honestly that great. But still something you could technically do. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea there behind all of these. It's just like another way. You could also dump a tier name as well, which means that you can go like branded fusion, fuse into Lubellion, and then go and dump like a Sheeran effect in order to shuffle back the Albaz, right? Instead of going for this guy, you can shuffle back the Albaz in order to go into a. Well, you can't go into Kit, but you could go into. I'll lie to you. I don't know what this is doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. You go Lubellion, pitch something, and then you can go off into the races. Yeah. I mean, if you have another tier name in your deck, you can go Kit Kalos. You know, so there's that. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. Sorry. Pot of Prosperity. Absolutely crazy card. Very good. You don't need a whole lot of your extra deck, but also you kind of do, so there's that. Play this cautiously. It also prevents you from drawing, so I don't know. We have Called By, we have Ash Blossom, we have Maxi, we have Nibiru, we have Ghost Ogre. Now granted, this OCG list that I looked at, and a lot of the OCG lists were playing Ghost Ogre, and I think the main reason for that was to deal with like the Splight cards, specifically Elf. So if Splight isn't as popular, this isn't going to be as useful. However, it's still pretty good. It's just a decent card in general. So there's that. We also have Fusion Deployment. You reveal a fusion monster from your extra deck and special summon it from your hand or deck, one of the fusion materials whose name is listed on it. So you could go for Kaleido Heart, revealing, and then special summoning out the Rhino Heart, which is very, very good. That's very good. However, you cannot special summon a monster from the extra deck except for fusion monsters the turn you activate this effect, which is why it's not as useful. Now with the branded stuff, it is a little bit more useful, and you could probably play this at 3 if you just wanted to kind of solely go into fusion monsters, but cutting yourself off of Abyss Dweller as well as Redoer, and things like Dark and Splight Elf is not necessarily the greatest idea, so that's why it's kind of not played too often, but it's still a cool card to consider. Instant Fusion is an auto win button. I didn't talk about this enough. This card just wins you the game because you make Kit, and then even if they negate it, you just pop it during the end phase, and now play during the end phase as if nothing has happened. Cool. Moving on, we have ourselves the Terraforming to add the Perlino. We have the Dark Ruler, Super Poly, stuff like that. Okay. Moving on, you can also play just polymerization, if you wanted to. You can search out polymerization through a myriad of different ways, like the Fright Fur stuff and what have you. And then, of course, Guardian Chimera can also be played there if you're playing the polymerization, because Guardian Chimera is just a good card. But the reason I say to not necessarily do this is because you can't actually make a Guardian Chimera with the tier names. You have to make it with polymerization, because there's no real other way for you to make it. So it's not great. You don't make it half the time. Yeah, it's not really needed. Anyway, Baguska is a card. Also, you could just you play Baguska. You could just plan B. DD Crow is also a very solid hand trap as well, because against tiers it blanks the tier name, as well as against Splight, if they go like Splight Elf, target, you go no, and deal with the target. There's that. If Splight Elf, well, Splight Elf will be incredibly popular, but if you don't need Splight Elf, you can get rid of it with Winter Cherries, which is very cool and funny. Also, other things like Sprite Sprint, which might inevitably come. Gigantic Splight, if you want to play that. Other such cards like the Abyss Dweller, if you don't want to make your own Abyss Dweller, and you go, I don't like that Abyss Dweller. Get it out of here. This isn't nearly as good in a best of 1. In best of 3s, it's very good, but it's worth considering if something is like tier 0. You could play this, throw in one of the extra deck monsters, and then just be like, nah. Then, of course, Ghost Spell. So, there's that. Let's talk about some specific techs that will be impactful. I don't know when we'll get them, but let's just talk about them. Alright, so we all know Visa's Starfrost, right? We have this card in Master Duel, I think. I think it came with the tier, or the Scareclaw stuff, and technically, he's part of the tier archetype, but no one cares about him. He's terrible, and he doesn't do anything. He's not even good access to Baron. I was about to say, oh, you can use him to make Baron, and then I was like, oh wait, no, that literally doesn't do anything. You actually can't do that. Because, I mean, technically, theoretically, you can. But in reality, it's so much better to just play Diviner of the Herald to dump like an Inishizu name. So, at the same time that you would be playing Baron, you wouldn't be playing this guy. Anyway, who cares? He's in this archetype as well. We also have a whole bunch of other tier names that will, or tier cards that will eventually come to Master Duel and be impactful. Notably, Kashtira tier, which is a card that is currently not in the TCG, but is in the OCG. During the main phase, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, banish a Kashtira or a tier card from your hand to a graveyard. Then, if it is normal or special, you can send the top 3 cards of either player's graveyard, or deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So it's basically just additional ways to mill cards on a big body, while also allowing you access access to a free summon, right? Since it is also a during the main phase quick effect, and not a during your main phase quick effect, you can also just play this on your opponent's turn, which is basically Havness 2.0. Yay! Anywho's what's it? We're going to talk about Scream. Scream is an absolutely insane card that gets your combo started in basically every game, and is really annoying in the mirror match, due to the fact that if you summon something and they have Scream, we're both playing the game of, did you hit a Yugioh? Which is not a fun game. Sometimes. It's great. I actually love it. But if a monster is normal or special summoned, you control a tier monster, or Visa Starfrost, see, there he is, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and for the rest of this turn, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. Just all of them. Just for the rest of the turn, anything they summon, -5. Why is this the case? I don't know. This card is crazy. It's so stupid. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can add a tier trap from your deck to your hand. Hey, guess what that adds? Crime. It's just an Omni Negate. That's all it is. It's just an Omni Negate, as long as you control a tier name. And guess what? It shuffles the card into the deck. The best form of removal. With banishing cards being not as influential anymore, because banish has become the second graveyard, which has basically become the second hand, at this point, banishing cards isn't nearly as good as just putting them back in the deck. Back to where you came from. So, honestly, this card is very good. On top of that, you also get to send a card from your hand to the graveyard, or a monster from your hand to the graveyard, which is very cool, because guess what? It triggers a tier name. Yay! Cool. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished tier monsters and add it back to your hand. As I said, it's basically the second graveyard. Cool. We also have a Heartbeat, which is a way to deal with Mystic Mine. I say it like that because that's basically the only thing that I've seen it actually used for. But in all reality, Heartbeat is it's just back row removal. You target a spell trap on the field, and or you can target 2 if you control Visa Starfrost. So you just target it's just Cosmic Cyclone, and you shuffle it into the deck instead of banishing it. Then you can send a card from your hand to the graveyard. Hey, this triggers tier names. Also, if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target a trap in the graveyard and add it to the hand. So this is another reason why you would play this card. You play it at like 1 or 2. Because you can add it back to your hand or like reshuffle it into the deck or something like that. And then you are also able to just recur a trap, right? Like, for example, a crime. So there's that. Pretty cool. Next up, we have the Bestials. I think most people know the Bestials, but I just want to kind of go over them real quick. They're basically just, if your opponent controls, or if there's a light or dark monster in your graveyard, or in either graveyard, you banish it, special summon this guy. This is really good at dealing with tiers because of the fact that it's a quick effect if your opponent controls a card. So this allows you to blank tier names once they have like Kit Kalos on their field or something like that. Just any monster that they have on their field, you get to go activate your Bestial from the hand, banish their dark monster or a light, and deal with it. You could also banish your own in order to trigger like Magnemut. Magnemut is on summon. It activates the effect to, during the end phase, add a dragon from your deck to your or graveyard to your hand. I don't know why it's just a dragon monster, but yeah, they just gave dragons even better support because reasons. Most of the time, this will be used to add another Bestial, like for example, Druisworm. Druisworm, when it is sent from the graveyard or from the field to the graveyard, you can target a special summon monster your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. Notably, it doesn't destroy or anything like that, but it does target. Kind of crazy. You could like crash into things and just be like, all right, go away. Then, of course, we have Saronir, where if it is sent to the graveyard, you can send a Bestial or branded spell trap from your deck to the graveyard. This is very silly because of the new branded support that we will be getting as well in Branded Beast and Branded Regained, which I believe is called Rebranded in the OCG right now, and that is way better in every regard. We also have the Bestial Lubellion, which searches all of these guys and also kind of brings himself back and adds like, I think he brings himself back and then sets or activates a branded card, which will be either the Branded Beast or the Rebranded. So let's quickly talk about these as well, because they're important. Probably. Once per turn during the main phase, if you control a Bestial monster, you tribute a dragon monster and target a card your opponent controls. Pop it. Get it out of there. During the end phase, you can target a branded continuous spell trap in your graveyard. Place it face up on the field. So this is very nice because if you end up milling something like a Regained, you can actually just reset it with Beast, which is cool. Then we have the branded or rebranded. If a light or dark monster is banished, you can target one of those monsters, place that monster on the bottom of the deck, and if you do, draw a card. You can only use this effect once per turn, and then once per turn, if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, you can target a Bestial in your graveyard, special summon it. So, both of these are hard ones per turn. Oh, sorry. This one is a once per chain. But the other one is a hard once per turn, which is very nice. It, shuffles back your monsters if they had, been Bestialed themselves, which is kind of funny. Why am I talking about this? Well, because honestly, these cards are so synonymous with the Ishizu tier stuff and is very widely played in Ishizu tier itself that, you kind of probably want to know about these before they actually come to Master Duel. And since, again, I do not know what we are actually getting at this point, we could just randomly get these cards. I wouldn't be surprised if we got these alongside the actual tier and Splight stuff, even before the new support, like Crime and what have you. Now let's talk about the other tier card, that being Lulukaros. Yes, it's Lulukaros. If you call it Rukalos, I will cut you. Not really. But this card requires Kit as well as a tier monster. Other Aqua monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. Cool. This is honestly just a very easy condition to meet because shuffling back a Kit Kalos in order to go into this guy is very nice. Why? Because it means that you can play one Kit. Legitimately, you can just play one of it. It's great. It's stupid, but it's great. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect that would special summon a monster, negate it, and if you do, destroy it, then send a tier card from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard. Now, notably, you do have to have the last bit covered, so you do have to have a tier card in order to activate the effect, but that's okay, because guess what? It triggers! Woo! Anyway, if this card is fusion summoned, or if this fusion summoned card is sent to the graveyard, you special summon the card. So, there's that. Also, notably, it can be used as fusion material, unlike the other one, Kaleido Heart. So you can actually use this one to go into the other one, and then just special summon this back in the same chain. Why? I don't know. You could. I don't know how. Let's talk about Sprint. Sprint sends any level 2 monster to your graveyard. Guess what? Merly is a level 2. Guess what? That triggers. Guess what? It's super easy to summon because all you need is a level, rank, or link 2. Guess what? You can make this with Gigantic. You can make this with Elf. You can make this with Dark. You can make this with anything. You go 2 monsters. You summon Dark. You bring back one of your opponent's Bestials that they happened to have in their graveyard because, of course, they had a Bestial in their graveyard. And then you just link those off, and then you make Sprint. And then Sprint dumps Merly. And then you're off to the races. Great card. Garura is not in the OCG. It is in the TCG. And it's a house. This is one of the reasons that Tier was able to compete with Splight when Splight was like the best deck. This card is absolutely crazy for this strategy. Why? Well, any battle damage your opponent takes from battles involving this card is doubled, but also, look at its materials, okay? 2 monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names. Do you know how easy that is? Do you know how absolutely easy that is? It's basically trivial. Okay? On top of that, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can draw a card. That's it. It's a level 6 dark monster that, when sent to the graveyard, draws a card and has super generic material. Yes, the battle damage kind of matters because it just allows you to OTK even easier, but in reality, drawing a card is enough to just absolutely break this card. Just an insane card, a stupid card, hate it. Everyone hates it. It's also the perfect super poly target because guess what? You have 2 monsters that happen to be the same. Die. I make Garura. Keep your eye out on this one. I highly doubt that it comes to Master Duel, but just in case. And then, of course, we have ourselves the Gigantic Splight, which we can go into, or we can use this card to bring out Jet, which can then go into Smashers, which can then be linked off into a Elf, which then, you're probably making this with Merly as well, which then the Elf on the opponent's turn can bring back the Merly, and now you have Smashers active as well, so you can go Smashers and Merly and do some cool things there. I'm not that big of a fan of that as a tech option, but and the reason for this is because it's not very good without a side deck. If you can side deck this stuff out, it's great, but like if you can't, it's pretty mid. So there's that. Then of course you could play it with other like standard fusion support with Frightfur into Edge of Chain stuff. And then the last card I want to talk about is Grief. This card is either insane or just mid. I do not know which. Special summon a tier monster from your deck or grave, then send a monster you control to the graveyard with the same type or attribute as the special summon monster. So, again, it triggers a tier, but also it special summon from the deck. So you could special something like Merly and then send a Rhino Heart that was negated due to Imperm or Ash, and now you're just like feeling alive. But also, if you're already at that point, you are probably doing good anyway and don't really need to special summon the Merly because you just normal summon a Rhino Heart. You're probably doing pretty good. Like, you have probably something in your hand, right? Like a Danger or another tier name or Sheeran or Hovness or something like that. So, I don't know. But if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target a banished tier trap, add it to your hand. This is why it's not as good. The first effect is crazy. The sent from deck to grave effect is pretty mid. No one is basically going to be triggering this. It comes up occasionally, like when Soliek gets Cosmic Cycloned, and that's about it. It's not very good. But that first effect is crazy, right? So, worth considering. I think one of the YCS wins for the TCG was playing this card at 3, whereas no one else was playing it like at all, and everyone was like, huh, why are we not playing this? What? This is crazy. So there you go. And that's it. That's it for the tier stuff. Hopefully you guys did indeed enjoy. Hopefully this gave you some insight into what you should be doing with it when it comes to... Oh, I didn't ever actually said which deck is better. Honestly, it's not this one. It's probably this one. And the reason that I say that, hand traps in a best of one are significantly better. So do take that in mind. However, I'm not sure I like the branded fusion variant, but you kind of need something to trigger your stuff. I think the dangers are a little bit better, but with more hand traps. So somewhere kind of like in the middle, I guess. But if you had to take one over the other, probably this one. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, I like it very much, so appreciate it. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.